Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for November 24th, 2022. Let me begin by wishing all of our American viewers a happy Thanksgiving and reminding you that with all the troubles in the world, there are some things that we have to give thanks for. And one of those is that we still have a Constitution which gives us certain inalienable rights. And one of those rights is the right to free speech and freedom of the press. And I will be talking about that today, but that's something we have to keep fighting for because it's under attack, very sustained attack in the United States. Some of you have been sending me emails recently and posting comments on the Facebook site that it's getting hard to find the daily updates, and the numbers of views have dropped very significantly in the last weeks. Now, is this censorship? I don't know. People have various views of Facebook, but there is a broader problem with the media, which I'll be getting to. But if you can't find my update the way you normally do, go to the LaRoucheOrganization.com, the LaRouche organization.com, and you should be able to find my update there every weekday. Now, on this question of overall suppression of free speech and freedom of expression in the media, I want to refer to a very good column written by Caitlin Johnstone that was published today on the hypocrisy of U.S. officials when it comes to freedom of speech. And she points to a statement issued by U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price, who wrote about the Russia decision, or the Russia trying to deport a journalist to Russia from Kyrgyzstan. And Price said, "We're dismayed by the decision to deport journalist Temirov from Kyrgyz Republic. Journalists should never be punished for doing their job." That's what Price tweeted out and said during his interview, that they should never be punished for doing their job. Now, Price represents the same government that's working to extradite Julian Assange from the United Kingdom with the intention to imprison him for 175 years. And what's his crime? Exposing U.S. war crimes. So instead of prosecuting those who committed the war crimes, the U.S. government is prosecuting the publisher who released official U.S. documents which document the war crimes committed in Afghanistan, Iraq, and elsewhere. Remember what Price said, journalists should never be punished for doing their job. Well, that's exactly what's been done to Assange. He's been in Belmarsh prison for almost 3.5 years. Before that, he was fighting extradition from the Ecuadorian embassy in London. A UN Special Rapporteur on Torture determined that Assange has been subjected to psychological torture in this prison. So where is this protest for freedom of speech coming from when it comes from people like Price? Well, let's look at what his boss, Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, had to say. Blinken, on November 2nd, which is the International Day for impunity for crimes against journalists. In other words, a day to recognize the importance of not prosecuting journalists and attacking journalists. What the State Department put out a statement saying, "We urge other governments to hold accountable those who target journalists with harassment, intimidation, and violence. We renew our commitment to an open and free press at home and abroad." And Blinken tweeted out, "No member of the press should be threatened, harassed, attacked, arrested, or killed for doing their job. We vow to continue protecting and promoting the rights of a free press and the safety of journalists." Blinken, what about Julian Assange? Are you respecting his rights? And it's not just Assange. Let's take a look at another action by the State Department and U.S. intelligence. What about the opposition press in Ukraine? That is the press and media which are exposing the corruption and fraud of the Ukrainian government. They've all been shut down. Journalists have been arrested, have been threatened, have been forced to flee, and some have been killed after being targeted by the Committee to Combat Disinformation, a Ukrainian national security and defense organization, which is funded by the US government, which has conferences to discuss suppression of free speech in Ukraine with US officials in attendance, including members of the US Embassy and the intelligence community. Is that an example of press freedom that Blinken and Price are talking about? Let's go a step further. This is a continuation of the actions against Lyndon LaRouche over many, many years, trying to prevent LaRouche from being heard by the American population. And in spite of those efforts, which include slander, intimidation, a threat to assassinate him, a 5-year prison sentence, which was completely fraudulent, despite that, LaRouche's influence continues to grow internationally in the movement to create a new security and financial architecture. And what we're finding is that people who are moving toward that direction are being attacked as authoritarian, are being attacked as dictators. Why? Because they oppose the attempts of the US government and NATO and the British especially to shut down their efforts to establish a new financial system. What about free speech? Instead of allowing reporting on what's happening in Asia, the Eurasian integration process, which includes Russia, China, India, the BRICS countries, and so on, that's mostly kept out of the US press. If it's reported as an attempt by Russia to stir anti-Americanism internationally. Why is it anti-American for China to lift people out of poverty? Why is it anti-American to help construct high-speed modern rail systems in Africa and South America? How is it anti-American to invest in water projects and energy projects in poor countries, which are being told by the US government and by NATO governments that they must go to a zero carbon policy, which means no electricity for their people? That's not what Blinken and Price are talking about. They're promoting some abstract idea of free press, which basically is limited to the freedom of journalists who support the empire to attack and slander anyone who challenges the narratives coming from the empire. So on this day, as we give thanks for the freedoms that we have in the United States, we have to be cognizant of the fact that those freedoms are being taken away from us. And the matter of free speech is one which must be fought for. And not just by Elon Musk, but by the average citizen who may or may not realize it, but your freedoms are under attack when hypocrites such as Price and Blinken stand up in public and extol the virtues of a free press as they're engaging in policies to kill that free press. So this is a bit of an austere message, but I do sincerely want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving and discuss these issues at the family dinner table with friends, because it's up to us to save the Constitution, which is under attack from these globalists.